Yeah, so landing and running and changing of direction, all of this provides the tissue with what we call a high loading rate. The velocity of the loading that is applied to the tissue is very high. So if we remember the tissues on the tendon are viscoelastic, we have to keep in mind that in the beginning, we should be using low velocity exercises, because that's what is going to give the stimulus that the tissue needs to have a higher turnover, a higher adaptation to the load that is being provided to it. After we have a not so much symptomatic patient in our hand, they're tolerating the high load exercise with slow velocity very well, we start to implement the high velocity exercises in the intermediate stages of rehab, and of course in the advanced stages of rehab. So that's when your plyometrics are going to come in. That's when your landing from a box will come in, landing from a box and doing a double leg vertical jump. Same thing with the single leg. So you do just the landing, then you do the landing and vertical jump after that. We saw that the load is different. So for just the drop jump is lower, drop with vertical jump is higher. The counter movement jumps also are higher than just doing a drop jump. So having that kind of information actually allows you to choose which exercises to use in the initial stages, which exercises to use in the advanced stages, not only for your tendinopathy, but also for your ruptures. For ruptures, this is very, very helpful too, because after a rupture, the patient doesn't have pain. So you can't really use pain as a guide to see, I can actually do this exercise. The patient is completely pain-free. If you do it too fast, it's over. You rupture again. So if you know how much load you have in the different exercises, you can actually have a plan of how to progressively increase the tolerance of load in those patients. And for the ACL patients specifically, I would bring the recommendation of keeping in mind that the single leg forward hop was one of the exercises in tier 3. It was one of the highest load exercises that we found for the patellar tendon. So think about your patients who are ACL reconstructed using your bone patellar tendon bone graft, who are in the rehab. They're not tolerating exercise all that well, and you're doing a hop test for distance to see how well they're doing. You're providing that tissue that's still healing with a very, very high amount of load, very high rate of load. So it doesn't really make sense to do that in the initial, even in the intermediate stages of rehab. So keeping that in mind seems to also be very important for those patients.